Welcome to Born to Spy, an interview series with Austin Goodrich. I have the pleasure and honor of being his daughter, Kristina Goodrich.
I had been mulling over the idea of doing something, doing some writing. I didn't have any idea of what I really wanted to write. So one day it just occurred to me out of the blue that I could start with the alphabet. A for apple.
Give us one story.
Okay. One was focused on the crabapple war, I call it. We must have been 4 or 5 years old, and we were climbing in a crabapple tree that a neighbor had. And so we used to climb up in the branches of this huge tree every fall and eat very sour, bitter crab apples. But they were wonderful once you got by the initial bitter sweetness. Then we started throwing them at each other, and the Great Crabapple War was ignited until finally one of these missiles bounced off one of their windows, whereupon we left the area.
Rats fleeing the ship.
In agreement that the crab apples were getting a little sour anyway. We'll come back next year.
And the cat and the donut story make it into
Oh, yes, I guess I haven't mentioned that yet, but I certainly will get to it, I'm sure. That was when I thought I had been watching my mom sugar donuts in confectioner sugar, and I thought, now that's really neat. So I took the little pussycat and put it in the bag of confectioner sugar and shook it up. And what emerged, of course, was an absolutely white ball of fluff with two little black eyes that opened, and you had a real problem getting that cat free of powdered sugar. And now I think I'm to H for my older sister, Helen, and some of the memories that we share.
Tell me one of those stories.
One of them was Helen when she was engaged to be married to Vince. He was a lieutenant in the Army during the war out at Fort Custer. And they announced their marriage in a rather dramatic fashion by barging into my parents' bedroom at about 1 a.m. and saying, "We're going to be married." That summer they had rented a cottage, and they used to let me and my buddies come into that cottage and drink beer on Saturday nights. And that I thought was a wonderful thing, because we were really, at 14 or so, we weren't permitted to drink beer at a bar yet. I have very rich experiences from the Army and the war, of course. I'm just working on that chapter now, which is very difficult because it was a real turning point and a determining turning point in my life.
You mentioned the other night something that I had not heard you observe about before, and that had to do with when you took the trip with Aunt Eleanor to Europe in 1948.
Yes, I think in retrospect, it appears to me that was indeed a critical year, critically important historically, because it was a time when the Cold War started. In fact, it was 48 that Winston Churchill coined the phrase in a speech at Fulton, Missouri. And we were right there at the beginning of it. And I recall with real vivid recollections a couple of examples of what happened that inaugurated or were landmarks of the beginning of the Cold War. One was in Finland, where the Communist Party was very, very strong. And Czechoslovakia had just voted the communists into power. The Finns were about to have an election, and the communists were campaigning very vigorously with strong Soviet support to make a bid for gaining power through the ballot. And we were right there when this was happening, with these big marketplace meetings and a spellbinding orator who had, tens of thousands in the crowd shouting, and it was really, really quite something. And then we went on into Germany, and were there when Erhard, the economics minister, pulled off his miracle by dramatically ending rationing, putting an end to the old currency, issuing new currency, all on a Sunday. So that, and when you awoke Monday morning, suddenly marketplaces that had been empty, maybe there was a cabbage or two and possibly a sweet potato, suddenly burst out into everything you could name: vegetables, fruits, meats, everything. From there on, Germany picked up and had its economic miracle. So it was a critical turning point, and we were there. In Italy, we got caught in a general strike, which could have led to a revolution. It was very close. The communists were extremely powerful, and we were on a train. The general strike was totally effective, and the train had to stop. They mined the tracks in front of it. So,
whoa!
Look, folks, you're not getting to Rome, not on this train. And they had a huge parade with the communists marching with their red flags and everything. And we sat there for 2 days. It was a scary time, pivotal in the history of Western Europe, certainly.
Yeah.
This occurred during my junior year in college, which I spent in Stockholm, the university. And again, like many things in life, it was an accident. I happened to be, now I'm not a bulletin boards person. I don't ever look at bulletin boards. But I happened to be waiting outside my dean's office for an interview, and with nothing better to do, I was looking over a little bulletin board and read an announcement of a GI Bill approved study at the University of Stockholm. I thought, what the hell? That sounds like fun. And so I applied with no thought of ever getting in, because it was primarily designed for graduate students. Well, to my surprise, I was accepted, and it was approved by the GI Bill. All I needed was $300 to get booked on passage on the old Grips home to get to Stockholm. And that happened. My dad said fine, he'd come up with the $300.
Wonderful.
And I had an enriching experience in school there, and one that really was pivotal in my entire life.
Please watch for more installments of Born to Spy, the interview series in which Austin Goodrich speaks of his work as a journalist and later as a case officer. This is Kristina Goodrich. Thank you.